What's up, everyone? Welcome back to AusHoopers TV. We are officially about 8 days away from the NBA draft. Hopefully, we will be able to do a mock draft of the draft before the draft happens. Obviously, we've got to do a bit of research beforehand of that late lottery sort of section. But we're looking forward to the draft. Obviously, it's a big time for trades. The free agency opens up soon. And we're going to dive into a few questions today about those sort of things. So, Bailey, how you been?
Yeah, pretty good. Just wrapped up the NBA finals. Thought, Heat were good enough getting at least one game in. But yeah, then the better team, I guess, just took over.
Yeah. The first question does involve Nikola Jokic, so we'll dive straight into it. I saw something pop up on social media regarding this? Where does Nikola Jokic rank amongst all-time centers in your opinion?
Definitely not top five yet.
Yeah.
Um, You'd probably have to list a few to see. I think he's, bordering top 10. But I think you could definitely make a case. I mean, two MVPs probably puts him in, 10th spot or something. But the thing is, he's still pretty young. I think he's 26 or 27. Maybe he's
Yeah.
28 at the most. But yeah, I'm sure there's more accolades coming. But right now, I'd probably have him in my top 10. Just especially carried through those two MVPs. And I know we've spoken a bit about when the MVP's named, after the season. But I mean, for this season, is he clearly not, realistically another MVP? He proved it obviously throughout the playoffs, whereas Embiid kind of didn't. So, I mean, that doesn't really matter at the end of the day. He's still only got two. But I think that's enough to put him in the top 10 and obviously a champion now as well.
Yeah. Um, I don't think I'd put him over Kareem. I definitely wouldn't put him over Kareem yet. Kareem, obviously six-time MVP, two times Finals MVP, six chips. I don't think I'm putting him over Wilt. Wilt's a four-time MVP, um, two chips. Bill Russell is obviously got the 11 championships. He's a five-time MVP. I'm not putting him over Bill Russell yet. So there's three. I think those are the best big three big men of all time. Then you've got your Shaq and Hakeem.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
Obviously
five
Shaq won an
segs.
MVP, four chips. Hakeem won an MVP, two championships. That's five already. I'd find it pretty hard for someone to argue that Jokic has overtaken any of those five
Yeah,
guys.
agreed.
Then you've got Moses Malone, three-time MVP with a championship.
Yep,
David Robinson, one-time MVP with two championships.
yep,
It's pretty hard to argue that he'd take over those two guys as well, in my opinion.
yep.
Then you kind of start to argue, is he already better than Patrick Ewing? Patrick Ewing didn't win a championship and he didn't win an MVP. So Jokic is a two-time MVP, arguably three, and he's just won his first championship with a Finals MVP. Is that enough to slot him in at the eighth spot? I think
If,
so.
yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah. So I'd,
Um,
I'd, I'd put him around eighth.
who else is? Do you have any more after that?
Well, this is Kareem's top 10 bigs.
Oh, this is Kareem.
He's got George McCann.
What was
Um,
his
he had
accolades?
seven championships, no MVPs. And then Bill Walton, he had one MVP and two championships.
So yeah, definitely top 10.
Yeah, I think so. I think Jokic is definitely top 10, maybe eighth, around the eighth spot, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I can get amongst that.
Yeah. We'll roll into question two. Fred VanVleet this week has declined his player option, not necessarily meaning that he's going to leave the Raptors, but they're going to have to offer him a bit more money to bring him back in. If Fred VanVleet decides to move, maybe they've discussed that already in the Raptors front office. Where is the best landing spot for Fred VanVleet?
Well, I'm pretty sure he had a player option on the last year of his contract and he's declined. And he wants to become a free agent. So I don't think he can turn around and change that anymore. Good question though, because he's a small shooting guard. I
Yeah,
don't know where that kind of fits in. I think it's kind of fading out a bit more in today's game. Like you see CJ McCollum struggling a little bit more. Obviously Fred's not going too well, and just these smaller guards are kind of going out, and you get these bigger guys like Josh Giddey, for example, or stuff slowly starting to come in. So yeah, that's a good question. I couldn't really find a spot for him. You're probably looking at, maybe somewhere where they just want a bit of firepower, like the Knicks or something. Have a bit of cap space. I'm pretty sure. I know he wouldn't really work along Jalen Brunson. You wouldn't think, but at the end of the day, they're kind of very good. The Knicks are just getting like good players who aren't superstars or anything, and just kind of making it work. So maybe that's a potential landing spot for him. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of teams would struggle to find a spot for him. You're either rebuilding or you're competing at the moment. And I'm telling you right now, Vanvleet isn't going to be your starting two guard, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Fred VanVleet does have championship experience. Obviously, he was on
Yeah.
that Raptors team with Kawhi Leonard. Throughout the 7 years he's played in the league, though, he's had to take a bigger role, obviously, these past few years with Kawhi leaving. But he has shot the worst he's shot from the field in 3-point percentage this past year. So obviously that comes with more attempts, but I don't know. What team would I think he fits on? It's a bit hard. I'd probably see him filling in on one of these, sort of on the brink of playoffs teams that need a point guard. Maybe the Bulls take him if they want to keep Levine and DeMar, and run him at the one. Maybe the Wizards take him if they're going to try and keep Kuzma, Porzingis, and Beal. Maybe him coming in kind of lures them to stay. Another team, maybe the Mavericks, if they end up losing Kyrie. But I'm not really sure where Fred VanVleet's fits in. So if he's not ending up back on the Raptors, then probably one of those three teams. But yeah, like you said, I'm just not sure if any of these top tier teams kind of see him as their championship point guard. So we'll have to see with that one. That's going to be interesting to follow.
Does he play point guard now, not shooting guard?
For the Raptors, yeah, I think
Yeah,
he
okay.
plays point guard,
Yeah,
and Gary Trent plays the two.
yeah, my mistake then.
He's currently on a 4 year. He signed a 4 year, $85 million contract back in 2020. And then this was his second last year, and he's just opted out. So the team taking him on is going to have to take on a $21 million contract, which isn't too bad for Fred VanVleet, I guess.
Or does it mean that he opts out of that so they get to sign him with a fresh new contract?
Is that what it is? I'm not too
I don't
sure how
know. We should
contracts work
we should probably
completely.
look more into contracts because we're pretty poor at knowing what goes on
Yeah.
with them.
But
But yeah, I'm
it's a
pretty
little
sure
difficult because Bradley Beal now has just opted out, and he's got a no trade clause, the only one in the league. So he makes decisions on, what he goes for and where he goes, if he wants to be traded or something like that. It's
yeah,
very, very complicated. But yeah, we definitely need to look into it.
yeah, because I'm pretty sure so people are surprised because he gets obviously 22 million guaranteed, but he opts out of that contract. So he means he's not guaranteed any money. He goes and signs fresh start somewhere else.
Okay.
I think the same's I don't know if it's different with Bradley Beal, but I know that if he's opted out of his player option, then I'm pretty sure he'll reset his contract. So that's why it's a big thing to say no on that final year, because usually you get paid a whole lot more. But we'll look into that for next time, I
Yeah.
guess.
The Miami Heat we'll go into question 3. The Miami Heat have just been eliminated from the NBA Finals. Obviously, they did the same thing in the bubble where they made that heroic run to the NBA Finals like this year and ended up falling short to the Western Conference team. The Miami Heat are in a bit of a weird situation this offseason. Max Strus is an unrestricted free agent. Cody Zeller's contract's up. Gabe Vincent's contract's up. Kevin Love's contract's up. Everyone else is sort of on contract. I know Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and Oladipo have been in trade talks. But what's next for the Miami Heat? Do they change much? Do they try and deal off some of these Tyler Heroes? Because they made that whole push without Tyler Hero, mind you. So if they get rid of him, pretty much they're running with this playoff team plus a star or a deeper bench they can get for Tyler Hero. Or do they try and aggressively bring back Strus, Vincent, and Zeller?
Yeah, I think 100% that's their goal to get those players back, and I think there'll be a lot of loyalty from those players. Considering the Heat were the first ones to really give them a chance and give them a crack, and look how far they've come, like you said, without Hero. At the same time, though, they're probably coming out of this season going, we're getting him back. If we can get this same team back, make a few little adjustments, like they don't need to do that much to change, and they'll be very competitive next year. It's not like they're going to be getting any worse, I think. They're not worried about, any chemistry issues or anything. They're just getting their team back together. They probably, I would love to see them and go aggressively. I don't know how much cap space they've got. I haven't had a look at that, but if they could get another all-star in their team, who's just got, that dog in them like they have, you don't want to go out and get someone who's going to change what they're like, which is ball movement threes, like bonding together and just going out there and getting it. If they can find another player like that, and there is a plenty out there, they'll be right in the same spot next year. So what was it? 2021 was when they lost in the finals.
Yeah, 2020 to 2021.
Yep. And then the next year they were first in the East.
Yep,
And
and then
then
lost to Boston.
yep. And then they've got this year as well. Was there a year in between this?
There was a year in between 2021 to 2022, and then 2022
To 2023.
no, 2021 to 2022. They lost to Boston, and Boston played the Warriors, and then
Yep.
2022 to 2023 was this year.
Yeah. So
just made the finals.
you look at the past 4 years, they've either made the championship. I mean, they've either made the NBA finals or they were, first in the East. I think there was one year that they might have gone poorly there. But, 3 out of 4 of those years, they're right up there. So it's not like they're far off. They just need that one little extra thing, like in those games against Denver, where you can just, you have that firepower to get you out. And that's probably the thing they're lacking. They've got everything else but that killer punch late. Because Jimmy, he was starting to struggle the further and further they got into those playoffs, and that's when that extra guy helps out.
Yeah. I agree. I think they have to kind of emphasize bringing in back Gabe Vincent. I thought he was a huge part of what they did this offseason. Max Strus is a bit of an iffy one for them. I'm not sure if he's an important person to bring back. Maybe it is good if they do, but I still think they've got Duncan, obviously Hero coming back. Do they look to move Lowry? Obviously, he's on a $30 million contract. It's an expiring contract as well. Maybe that's something they look at. Maybe teams can hold off on Victor Oladipo with him being injured. I'm not too sure. So I'm gonna say they sort of run it back, but maybe bringing in maybe it's Fred VanVleet, maybe it's like a Damian Lillard, those guys that can kind of put their head down and I don't think they're going to alter this team too much. Obviously, they've got the ball in their hands, but they've still got that same mentality where they go out and they have that dog in them to win. That's why I don't really like the comparisons and sort of talk of Bradley Beal going there. I'm not sure if he's going to fit in that sort of situation. So I think Damian Lillard's a better fit for them. So we'll see.
For sure.
Hopefully the Miami Heat can sort their things out and be back in contention next year because I like watching them this year.
So is Larry on 30 million?
Yeah, 29.
They probably don't have much cap space. That's the problem.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler next year's on 45. Bam's on 32. Lowry's on 29. Hero's on 27.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what they do with Kevin Love, because he wasn't he was obviously important being around the guys, but he wasn't getting those big time minutes. Like Kevin Love in his day, he's not coming off the floor.
Yeah.
And now you look at him, he's regressed a lot lately. So do they keep him as a guy who is kind of around the team and, you know what I mean, is a little bit more of that veteran player?
Yeah.
Or are they just like, oh no, you'll find a go? I think he'll go back there again. Bet you he loved what they did in the playoffs.
Yeah. So when Cleveland waived him, he signed a $3 million contract 1 year.
Minimum.
Yeah. So I think they'll sign him to a 1 or 2 year again.
Yeah.
Sort of the same amount. And I think that's pretty good value for Kevin Love, especially because he came late. I feel like they didn't really know his rotation, especially late in the playoffs. They kind of hesitated a bit in the Celtics series, I felt. But if they can find a way to use him off the bench productively, I think he's definitely a good person to keep on that roster.
For sure.
Here's an interesting one. I'm keen to hear everyone on social media's comments on this one. What is the best performance you've seen live? Not in person, like it can be live on television, anything.
I'm trying to think. The best thing I've ever seen where I've just like, oh my God, was Clay's 37, I think it was, in a quarter.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is insane. But I think the biggest game that ever had an impact on me was when OKC had Golden State down 3-1 in the semifinals. in that final game 7 after they've clawed it back Golden State and Steph Curry hit that, just comes back half past half court and hit the three. That is the most vivid experience I've ever had from a game where I've remembered it the longest and I've just gone, oh my God, like there's no way this has just happened. So I'd say that's the most like the one I remember the most, but Clay's was just, oh my God, look at this guy go.
Yeah. I think the craziest game I've watched live was Dame's. I think it was 55 points on the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah, I
it in
saw
the
those
bubble?
highlights the other day for again.
It's ridiculous. You have Austin Reeves and KCP throwing their hands up. Um, it's they just can't do much about it, and it was just insane. I think he had 12 threes, something ridiculous, and the shots he was making, it's just like you go like surely not, and he just kept hitting another one and another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Other than that, probably the most traumatic game being a Wizards fan was probably when we were one game off facing LeBron, with our prime team, John Wall and Bradley Beal, Game 7, Eastern Conference semis, and Isaiah Thomas had 53.
Yeah.
Um, that was a huge game, and it's just so frustrating because he's so small compared to all our 6'3", 6'4" guards. But definitely one of those two. I think Damian Lillard's 55. The shots he was making in that one was absolutely crazy. So I'll probably say that one.
It
That one
was
was
an
definitely one of the best.
it was an N1 midi, wasn't it? To
Yeah, Isaiah to clutch it out on
yeah.
Markeith Morris. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
insane.
that I saw those highlights again, those Damian Lillard ones that you're talking about, and you just shake your head.
Yeah.
What like Austin Reeves was praying to God, like thank God that he's missed one.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it. Um, we'll get into our questions of the week. Let's hear yours.
A lot of talk about Trey Young saying we next or something. I think he tweeted out. Where do you have the Hawks next season, and when do you at all or see them winning a championship in the future?
Um, I am a huge Trey Young fan. I think he's very good at the game of basketball. Do I think they've got it in them next year? I'm not sure. I really like the Quinn Snyder pickup. I thought they got uh, exceptionally better after moving Nate McMillan. DeJounte Murray is a great piece next to Trey Young. I thought John Collins performed pretty well this playoffs. A lot of people were disappointed in what he did. I thought he didn't play too bad. I like Capella and Okongwu at the bigs. DeAndre Hunter's a great wing defender. They just picked up Sadiq Bey as well, which was a very, very underrated pickup. So I don't think they have next, but I definitely do think they've got one in the next 3 years. I think it's possible. So it
Yeah.
really depends on what they do in the development of these younger guys. But DeJounte Murray is only getting better. Sadiq Bey is only going to get better. And DeAndre Hunter's only going to get better. And Okongwu hasn't really seen the court all that much compared to these other younger guys in his class. So I think I've got really high hopes for the Hawks. I think Trey Young can definitely carry a team to the playoffs. They got 2 games on Boston this year, nearly a third. I think they blew a lead in that game where they lost. But in 2021 to the championship Milwaukee Bucks, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals without DeJounte Murray, and they took that series to 6 games, I think. So they've been there before, close. So I don't think it's too out of the park to say that they're definitely not a write off. That's what I'll say. I don't think that's a bad take. So
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Trey Young, and I think he's definitely underrated more than overrated. And I definitely think Hawks have a chance. I don't think it's next year though. Definitely not. But we'll see. Anything can happen in this offseason. They could definitely grab someone like DeRozan or possibly Bradley Beal. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm not writing them off.
All right.
What are your thoughts, you reckon?
I think that's not a bad take. I'd like Capella to move. I know he's good for them right now, but when you get into the playoffs, you need bigs who can move and switch and kind of run the floor. You always see championships teams always going a bit smaller. I mean, unless you got a guy like Jokic who's just on another level, but you see them going a bit smaller. And I just don't know if Capella really suits that team. But I get what you're saying. In the next, I agree, not next year, but in the next few, I'd like to see them move Capella. I don't know who for, but they build around those other 3 main guys, like you said.
Yeah. My question of the week, obviously this morning, we woke up to the news that Bradley Beal has sort of met with the front office to discuss a trade. Obviously, he's got that no trade clause, like we talked about earlier in the episode. What team do you think should be the most aggressive at targeting Bradley Beal? Is it someone like the Lakers? Is it someone like the Celtics? Is it someone like the Heat? Or is it going to be a different sort of team like the Mavs, the Timberwolves, teams like that? What do you reckon?
It's a good one because you got to think, where's he want to go if he's leaving
Yeah,
Washington? And like, I'm thinking that he's not taking this 57 million. He'll still get signed, no doubt, to a max contract, but it's going to be a lot less than the 57 million for his first year. So
no,
now I'm
whatever
thinking,
whatever team he goes to has to take on the contract.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
so yeah,
and and they have to take on his no
so
trade
he's
clause
not
as
opting
well.
out. He's just asked for a
No,
trade. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
they're gonna
So
work.
yeah,
They're gonna work together for a trade. So they have to take on his 5 year, which is in the
yeah,
second year of, mind you,
yeah.
which is
Okay, yeah,
very very hard to move. And then
yeah,
they also have to take on his no trade clause.
yeah,
So whatever team he goes to, if it doesn't work out in the first year or second year, he'll still have 2 more years on that hefty contract,
yeah,
and he gets to decide where he goes and what for as well. So
yeah,
if for example, if the Heat offer Bam Adebayo, obviously they're not going to do that, but let's just say they offer Bam, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and a first. Bradley Beal can look at that and go like, the Heat get significantly worse. I don't want to go there.
yeah,
They get that much worse for me,
yeah,
and the Wizards can't do it.
yeah,
So that's just an example, but
yeah,
continue.
yeah, yeah. Nah, sorry. I thought he was on his. I thought like he had a player option or something and opted out. So yeah, that's fine then. So they've got to take on that contract. So you look at that. Where's he going to want to go, and what are you going to get back for him? Um, I mean, Portland's a possibility, but once again, I spoke about them last week. I'm not too keen on them just trying it again. Um, so yeah, probably not Portland. The Heat, like you said, I don't see the Mac like he doesn't really fit their bill. Um, let me have a look at some teams while you tell us what you think, and I'll see if I can find one.
Yeah. I think I'm not going to overthink this one, and I'm going to say he just returns to Wizards. I think they're going to be aggressive in trying to keep him. They've got a whole new front office, and I think them coming in and trading Bradley Beal off the rip, who has been, with us for uh 11 years, I think, 2012 he was drafted, so I think he's coming into his 11th or 12th season. Um, it's just a really big statement for those guys to make, and I don't think they'll do it. I think if they were to do it, they'd leave it till the trade deadline to see how we're going. Um, I think this team is missing something. I'm not sure what it is, but I definitely think no team wants to take on the risk of that contract, especially with the no trade clause. Um, he does have a 15% trade bonus, which I'm reading now, which I didn't realize, which would be quite a lot, especially with the size of that contract. But I'm not too sure what team would take on that contract, especially if you're a championship sort of roster. The only one I can really think about is the Lakers, whether they give up Austin Reeves, which would clear up quite a bit of cap space, them not having to re-sign him, whether they give back Rui. D'Lo would probably be in that deal. Dennis Schroeder might be in that deal. Thomas Bryant would probably come back to Washington. Um, they'd have to give up quite a lot to the point where they would lose depth. And I think even then they struggled with depth last season. So bringing in Bradley Beal, he's still not going to be the Bradley Beal you want him to be with LeBron and AD next to him. So it's just hard. He took a dip in points per game last year. I think he averaged 22. His efficiency did go up and his playmaking did go up. Obviously, you're going to get that with Porzingis and Kuzma next year, but I'm not going to look too far into it. I think Bradley Beal's going to re-sign. I think that's pretty obvious. Unless you're a team like the Knicks, maybe you give up RJ Barrett and you kind of run Brunson, Beal, and Randall.
Does he say
Um,
yes to that? Probably not.
that's the thing. Does he want to go live in New York and play with that team where he's not really, a confirmed title shot? Does he maybe go with a three-team trade where he lands somewhere like Milwaukee and he can pair up with Drew and Giannis? Maybe that's something he wants to do. But I don't think. I think I read somewhere that if there was to be a deal, it would have to be before draft night, so teams can sort their stuff out on draft night. But I just don't see that happening in the next 7 days. I think it's going to be pretty hard to offload that contract. So I think he's going to be with the Wizards at the start of next season.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he's pretty much, he can just say, I want out until he comes, turns back around and says, like, nah, I'll stay now. So they can probably just keep looking like there's no real,
Yeah.
like, I get that they want to make a deal before then, but he can go into the next season going, I still want to be traded.
Yeah.
And there's nothing really that anyone can do about it. It just creates a bit of eeriness in the locker room, I guess, where you got a guy who doesn't really want to be there. But yeah, I was just looking because I was looking at teams in the playoffs that made the playoffs this year. And the one that sticks out to me is the Bucks straight away.
Yeah.
I think I talk a lot about how they don't have that guy to go give them the ball in those late situations. They're a great team who, when they're up by 10 with 2 minutes to go, you're not too worried. They can hold on the lead. But when it's a tied game with, a minute to go and you're going back and forth trying to get buckets, the Bucks aren't. That's not where they, thrive. And I think a guy like Bradley Beal actually suits them perfectly. Would replace Middleton, who I think is a bit more of a catch and score kind of guy, whereas Beal's more off the dribble, can create his own shot a lot better, which I think will suit them perfectly. Whether you even have to give up, whether it was, I don't know how it would work contracts wise. I don't think Middleton would be on anywhere near that kind of money. But for sure, that's definitely got to be the number one spot for him. Just looking at teams that have made the playoffs, I think he'd suit them perfectly, actually. And then, yeah, I suppose we say that the Knicks, I said that the Knicks, would he really want to go there? But I mean, they finished fifth. They beat the Cavs, took Miami to 6 games. Like, you're adding Bradley Beal next year, you're probably right in the talks of, right where you were this year, maybe getting, past a team like the Heat. So they're probably the two off the top. Bucks number one, you're going as hard as you can to get there for as little as, getting traded for as little as possible off that team. They've got to have draft picks, the Bucks, you'd think. They haven't used, like, you haven't heard of them doing many trades lately or anything. So they'll probably have a lot of first rounds to give. So yeah, that's where I'd be aiming if I was him. That's definitely the main place, or you're just going to have to, suck it up and go back to Washington for a bit. But it's never ideal when they do that. They ask for a trade. Remember Kevin Durant asked for a trade
I
from
don't think Bradley Beal asked for a trade. The report that came out was that if they're looking to rebuild, they will look to trade Bradley Beal, the head office. Bradley Beal hasn't requested a trade, but
Okay.
but
So he's
the head office has come out and said that if we are looking to tank, which we may be looking to do, Bradley Beal is definitely on the trade block. But
right, and he's
I've heard mixed reports that the front office is going to be competing. They love to compete and they always want to compete. So it's just a bit of in the air sort of stuff. I'm not too
and then
sure.
what has he come out and said, I'm okay going if I, get to go where I want.
That's just his trade clause. So they're just presuming that he's going to come out and say that I'm happy to leave if I go where I want.
Yeah.
But he hasn't come out and said anything yet. So
Okay.
yeah.
So it's all speculation at this stage.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you'd be silly not to go to the Bucks if you got the chance.
Yeah, I agree. Or the Lakers. I think if they can find out a good deal, maybe send D'Angelo Russell, Reeves, and something else. I think Bradley Beal, LeBron, and AD would be a pretty tough side in the West.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I find it interesting that the Memphis Grizzlies have a pretty deep roster, and they are never ever in the trade talks ever.
Yeah.
Like they're second in the West this year. They've always sort of been around and competing, and you never really hear about them, targeting the Bradley Beals or anything like that. So
Who would
I was
probably
just thinking
suit
about
them
that.
well.
Yeah, you could send probably Bain and Brooks and get
These
him set up.
Kings are the Kings. I wouldn't mind him on the Kings. I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
guess
another team I was looking at.
just another team that just doesn't, try and get these big sort of guys.
Yeah.
So I thought Memphis would be all right. I mean, if you can send Bain, Brooks, and maybe like a Kenny Lofton, I feel like you could probably get him straight up without kind of getting rid of any picks. Maybe Luke Kennard as well. I know teams value their shooters.
Yeah.
But yeah. That'll wrap up this week's episode. Thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully we're looking to get that mock draft out before draft week. Excited for the draft. Keep an eye out on our YouTube for that one. Follow us on all social medias. We're uploading shorts and snippets. And subscribe if you're listening on a podcast streaming platform. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you next week.